Welcome to the 2023 ILA Leadership Forum. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Welcome to the 2023 ILA Leadership Forum. The program will begin soon. Please take your seats. We welcome you to the 2023 ILA Leadership Forum. Please welcome to the stage, President of the National Rifle Association of America, Charles L. Cotton.
Thank you, folks. It's a little too close to the first few rows, so that's the reason we had folks throwing it. It's a lot of fun to be here. It really is, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, let me get the formalities out of the way. Welcome to Indianapolis for our 152nd NRA annual meetings and exhibits, as well as the NRA. It's a great time with some folks that really impact our lives all over this country. Some of it is local, some of it it's on the national level, and we get to hear them in a setting where it's just different. I listen to a lot of folks that are in office and are running for office, but in this particular forum, there's something about it that's different. Perhaps it's the fact that they know they're here with thousands of folks that are like-minded on so very, very many issues. But again, let's get this show on the road, as the old saying goes. To begin the program, please stand with me and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks. Hang on a second, folks. If you would, please remain standing. We have a local Indianapolis opera soprano that's going to perform the national anthem for us. And first of all, let me tell you her name, and I'll go ahead and answer the question that you're going to be asking. Her name is Brooke Haggard, and no, she's not kin to Earl, but she is here to perform for us. Brooke, thank you, ma'am.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last whose broad there, oh say does not star-spangled
was afraid I'd already worn out my welcome here and they were going to take me off the stage. Folks, it's a great opportunity for me to be able to introduce Wayne LaPierre to the crowd. Not that Wayne needs any introduction, but I've known Wayne for the 22 years I've been on the board of directors. I've known him pretty closely. I've known him for many more years than that, since he's been fighting for us for 40 years. But since 2019, when I was first elected as an officer of the NRA, I had a chance to work with Wayne on almost a daily basis. And one of the things that always impresses me in the relationship that we have with Wayne and what he's done for the Second Amendment, for the NRA, and certainly not only for the millions of NRA members, but for the hundreds of millions, 150 million to be exact, American gun owners. I got a chance to look around Indianapolis a little bit. Not as much as I would like, but I saw the War Memorial. Those of you who have, please bear with me for a moment, if you will. My heroes have always been the 185 men that defended the Alamo. They knew that they were going to die. They knew that they were trading their lives for 13 days for Sam Houston to put a ragtag volunteer army together and win freedom and independence for what became the Republic of Texas. The men stood on the wall for 3 assaults. Now the only thing inside the wall at the Alamo, a couple of the movies are fairly accurate about it. Yeah, there's the chapel, the Alamo Chapel, and that's what people tend to remember. It was a little bit more than that, but precious little. But there's another wall. And there are men on that wall, and there are women on that wall. And inside that wall is not an Alamo Chapel, though that is near and dear to most Texans. Inside that wall is freedom. Inside that wall are our families. Inside that wall is the ability to not only enjoy firearms, and I certainly do. I'm a collector, a competitive shooter, a hunter. I love using firearms for self-defense. But I've said time and time again, the highest use for a firearm, in my opinion, and I dare say in yours as well, is the protection of innocent life. That too is inside that wall. For 40 years, taking all the arrows, insults, and attacks that one man should never have to take, has been Wayne LaPierre. He's been on that wall with countless other folks, many of whom are sitting right here now. The difference is, the wall at the Alamo bought time, 13 days to be exact, and it ultimately led to the Battle of San Jacinto, which gained Texas's freedom. Sadly, the wall I'm talking about now that protects our freedom will never see an end. The sad truth is, there always need to be new folks to climb up on that wall. And fight. Folks, for you no matter what they have to face. I can honestly say Wayne LaPierre is our friend, not just mine, yours as well. Folks, please help me give a warm Indiana welcome to your friend and mine, Wayne LaPierre, Executive Vice President of the NRA.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Charles, and what a great NRA president we have. Welcome, all of you, and thank you very much. Believe it or not, this is my 45th year with the National Rifle Association. You know, if I ever write a book about my experiences with the NRA, I think I'll call it, When You Fight Like Hell for Freedom, You Get More of It. Because that's how it really works, and you all know that. Like here in Indiana, law-abiding gun owners no longer have to get government permission to carry a firearm for self-defense. It's called constitutional carry, and Hoosiers have it because NRA members fought like hell for freedom and got more of it. In fact, NRA members have liberated more than half the nation now with constitutional carry. But we're not stopping until it's the law of the land in all of the land. I promise you that. And I know we'll get there because I've watched you, NRA members, fight like hell for freedom and get more of it and win over and over and over again. You, teachers, police officers, you lawyers and cashiers, electricians, nurses, surgeons, code writers, and truck drivers. You, moms and dads, educating your kids about freedom every day. You, Democrats, Republicans, and independents. You young hunters, and old collectors. You paper punchers and safety arrived the day you were born, and it shall not be infringed. You know, the ruling class, they hate that. They're up there right now. You are who they fly over, and who they look down on, and who they write off. Well, I'll tell you something. That's a big mistake. I don't care how many billionaires, TikTok stars, or Hollywood airheads they've got. Hear this. Gun-hating politicians should never go to bed unafraid of what this association and all of our millions of members can do to their political careers. Because you fight like hell for freedom and you get more of it. One member at a time, one $45 membership at a time, one doorbell, one rally, one election, one vote at a time. You show up, you stand on principle, you fight and you win. So what do you say? Let's fight like hell for freedom and let's get more of it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll tell you, we do it all together. That's how it gets done, so thank you. The last time we were here in Indianapolis, our next speaker stood on this very stage and signed legislation to improve your right to self-defense. But he didn't stop there. Last year, he signed legislation that says law-abiding gun owners can exercise their right to carry without government approval. It's called constitutional carry, and thanks to his leadership, the right to keep and bear arms is alive and well in Indiana. Ladies and gentlemen, please give me a warm Hoosier welcome to your governor, Eric Holcomb.
All right. Thank you, and thank you, Wayne. Thank you all for being here, for carving out time for this very important. I think maybe my beautiful bride, Janet, should have been the one to have the invitation to stand before you. Some of you, sounds like you know her. After all, she was just down the street earlier today hosting the Women's Leadership Forum luncheon, as she has done in years past. And for the record, we're both NRA lifetime members, but she's the certified NRA pistol instructor who hunts wild boar hanging from a helicopter and dolls sheep up in the cold, rainy Yukon some 200 yards away because she can do a great stalk. Look at me, I'm proof. And she hunts elk outside of Trinidad and antelope with her friend, the First Lady of Wyoming, and just last week rode deer east of Barcelona, Spain. And there is no Barcelona, Spain in the state of Indiana, by the way. I asked her, is there not enough deer in North or South America that you have to go to Europe to bring one home? And I'm guessing you're thinking what I learned long ago. Since we don't argue, I sleep better than anyone on planet Earth. But let me just say, and I can, for both Janet and myself, if you've traveled here from across state lines, welcome to Indiana. We are known as the crossroads of America and the heart of the heartland. And I think this week you're going to see, especially this weekend, you're going to see exactly why we have acquired that reputation. So if you'll permit me very quickly, a shameless plug, or maybe several for that matter. If perhaps you flew in from somewhere else, you came through our airport, #1 ranked airport in North America the last 10 straight years, or if you drove here, you might have noticed some construction out there, these orange cones and barrels that look like our new official state flower because they're sprouting up everywhere. That's all part of our #1 ranked in the nation infrastructure program, fully funded, not debt financed, by the way. And I realize I've got some governors that are following me, so they're going to have some #1 rankings too, but you see here in Indiana, as my predecessor, Mike Pence, Indiana was ranked the #1 state in the nation to start a business, according to Forbes. And should probably resonate in this hall, knowing there's a lot of business owners among us. And you're in a state where we make it our business to help you as sportsmen or collectors We help make your dreams come true with an abundance of outdoor recreational opportunities that I'm sure our Indiana Department of Natural Resources can explain more to you about at a booth in the halls down the way here. We're proud to be the home to the NRA's National Marksmanship Competition Center down at Camp Atterbury that attracts civilian and law enforcement and military competitors alike. In 2002, we hosted the prestigious Pershing match. In 2024, we'll host the World Shooting Sport Championship. So I hope you all come back now next April to see the most skilled shooters in the world in action right here in Indiana. And speaking of that, you're in a state that couldn't be, as my two predecessors at this podium just articulated, you're in a state that couldn't be more grateful for our uniformed heroes who keep our nation's flag and all it represents flying high over this land of the free only because of their bravery. You were surrounded by patriots, not just in this hall, but border to border in the state of Indiana. And yes, we fully exercise our constitutional rights. We put our money where our mouth is, and if you haven't been on that race, put it on your bucket list. You've got an invitation from me. I promise you, you'll be glad you attended. We even hosted all 68 teams for the NCAA Martin on this side of freedom, on this side of the wall. May the good Lord continue to bless our great nation and our state and each and every one of your lives and livelihoods. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, I love you too. And welcome back to the Hoosier State. I want to thank Wayne LaPierre for his leadership. The introduction he knows I prefer is pretty short. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and it's my honor to welcome the NRA ILA back to Indiana. Thank you all for coming. It really is good to be back with all the patriots of the NRA.
Men and women who stand on the ramparts of freedom, defending all the God-given liberties enshrined in the Constitution of the United States every day. With your support, the Trump-Pence administration championed freedom for 4 remarkable apology for the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. With your support, we achieved the lowest unemployment, the highest household income, the most pro-American trade deals, the most secure border, and we made the most powerful military in the history of the world, stronger than ever before. But maybe most important of all, we appointed conservatives to every court in the land. And that conservative majority on the Supreme Court recognized the constitutional right to self-defense exists not just inside the home, but outside the home as well. And I'm incredibly proud to say the majority in the Bruen decision included all 3 of the Supreme Court justices that our administration appointed to the highest court in the land. So thank you for your support for those consequential 4 years. And thank you for the honor of serving as your vice president. You know, my life has changed a lot since the last time I stood at this podium, standing before the NRA. 2 years ago, we moved back here to Indiana, bought 5 acres and a pond. I got a riding mower, John Deere 54-inch deck, 0-turn radius, 25 horsepower. You know, one of the great things about no longer being vice president is you get to drive your own car. One of the bad things is you get to pay for your own gas. And maybe most important of all, once lifted the American spirit to new heights just a few years ago, has been replaced with national fear and uncertainty, and blanketed airways with incendiary rhetoric that fuels the chaos, endangers police officers, and threatens American lives. Well, I came here today before the NRA. As we stand here today, American freedom is under attack as never before. Big media, big government, even big business have locked arms to advance a pernicious, radical left agenda, trampling on free enterprise, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. You know, not in a million years could anyone have imagined that an American credit card company would someday collude with liberal politicians to track, monitor, shame, and eventually shut down legal gun store purchases. But that's exactly what's happening as we speak. But I'll promise you, with a new Republican Congress and a new Republican president, we will kick these liberal meddlers out of our gun stores and out of your lives. You know, You know, the elites in Washington have never been more out of touch with the values of everyday Americans, and never more intent on imposing their agenda on each and every one of us. Anyone who dares to disagree with their left-wing dogma is targeted for harassment and ridicule. They want to take away your freedom of speech. They want to take away our religious liberty. And as you all well know, they want to take away the right to keep and bear arms. But let me make you a promise. As long as there is breath in my lungs, We gather today at this NRA-ILA Leadership Forum in a very challenging time in our nation. In the wake of tragic violence that struck here in the heartland in recent days, at a Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee, and at a bank branch in Louisville, Kentucky. The Bible says that we mourn with those who mourn and grieve with those who grieve. And I know I speak with everyone here when I say that our hearts and our prayers are with all the families that suffered loss and injury in these unspeakable attacks. Ignoring the motivations of the challenges of the man who killed 5 people and injured 8 others in Louisville, President Biden the Democrats have returned to the same tired arguments about gun control to our kids. So I say to Joe Biden and the gun control extremists, give up your pipe dream. Of gun confiscation in this free society. You could take steps to end violent crime in our major cities. You could confront the scourge of mental health in this country that's claiming lives every year. And while you're at it, why don't you secure the southern border of the United States of America and end the tidal wave of illegal immigrants and drugs pouring into our cities. I'm tired of the excuses, the predictable blame shifting, the pointless calls for gun control against law-abiding Americans. I'm tired of the senseless violence and the loss of life that could be prevented if our leaders would support law enforcement, protect our schools, institutionalize the obviously mentally ill, and enact legislation to ensure that anyone thinking about these heinous acts of mass shooting knows that they will face justice and face justice swiftly. Those are real solutions. And it begins with electing leaders who will stand without apology with the men and women of law enforcement and end the defund the police movement once and for all. You know, the police officers in Nashville and an admiration of every American. So we need to support and back the blue. But secondly, with Joe Biden spending trillions of dollars on their liberal agenda, I think the time has come for leaders in our nation's capital to give every community in the country the funds to place armed resource officers in every public and private school. Right after I was elected governor in 2012, we enacted legislation here in the Hoosier State to do just that. The most prosperous nation in the history of the world. And with law enforcement, protect our kids. And finally, while the assailants in the most recent attacks were taken out by law enforcement on the scene. To ensure that those who engage in mass shootings face execution in months, not years. With so much violence taking place at the hands of those with severe mental illness, the answer to mass shootings is not fewer guns, but it's more institutional mental health in this country. You know, in the 1960s, liberals emptied our psych wards only to fill our streets and ultimately our prisons with the mentally ill. More than 20% of our prison population have serious mental illness to commit the crimes that they committed. You know, one of my last acts as governor of Indiana before I became your vice president was we broke ground here in the Hoosier State on the first new mental health hospital to be built in 30 years. Men and women, we have got to get back to institutional mental health care in this country, families with some institutional mental health care in America. Now, while the other side talks reflexively about gun control, these are real solutions. Backing the blue, protecting our kids, advancing policies that will ensure that justice is swift, and dealing with the dangerous mentally ill with institutional care. But it's going to take new leadership to get these things done. You know, when the government allows rampant crime, or even worse, when it encourages rampant crime by lax prosecutors in our major cities. Government's enabling assault not just on the American people, but on liberty itself. I mean, I don't need to tell you, the Constitution of the United States is the greatest charter for freedom in the history of mankind. More than ever, America needs the voices of the millions of patriots of the NRA to stand up and to stand on the Constitution of the United States. You know, more and more it seems like there are two kinds of people in this country. Those who believe the Constitution says what they want it to say, and those who believe the Constitution says what it means. We're looking out at all of you. I know you know the Constitution says what it means and means what it says, and so do I. And I will always stand on the Constitution of the United States and defend all the God-given liberties enshrined there. So help me God. People aren't always going to understand when you make that stand. I don't have to tell people that defend the Second Amendment. Criticism may come. And so I'm here to educate this rising generation about the foundation of our freedom. Stand your ground by electing men and women at every level of government who believe in and will support and defend the principles enshrined in our nation's charter. And as you stand your ground in these troubled times for our nation, if you're inclined to bow the head and bend the knee, I encourage you to do that too. You know, this country's in a lot of trouble. I encourage you to remember those ancient words, that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and this one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you for the honor of serving. Thank you for being here in the Hoosier State, and thank you for your strong and unwavering stand for freedom. God bless you all.
All right, what a day. It's a pleasure to introduce our next speaker. As the 46th governor of Arkansas, he has always signed and supported gun rights legislation. He's always had the courage to defend the right to keep and bear arms. Several years ago, this man stepped up to help NRA and develop real solutions to help keep American schools safe. Together, we assembled a task force of Homeland Security experts, law enforcement trainers, and school security professionals, and the result is the NRA's School Shield program that, given a chance to work, can keep our kids safe. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my friend and yours, Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Thank you, Wayne. Such a privilege to be here at the NRA today. Thank you for fighting that we created jobs, lowered taxes, we improved education, we shrunk the size of government. But one of the things that is just as important else is to support the Second Amendment and our freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. I have stood with the NRA through my time in public and we fought the battle and we stood firm. When I was asked by President Bush to be a part, I had responsibility for the border security. We didn't get it perfect, but let me tell you, it's a lot better than it was today and what Joe Biden has done. And whenever you look at the border security, whenever you look at the transportation networks, I was pleased to work with the NRA to make sure that our men and women who carried firearms can do it safely on an airplane. You can make sure you can go hunting. We made sure the rules accommodated our outdoorsmen. And then it was after the Newtown tragedy. You need to have armed personnel to protect the children. And so in Arkansas, we not only put school resource officers that were trained in law enforcement techniques, but we also authorized school personnel to be trained and to be commissioned as a commissioned officer to carry a firearm in the school and protect the children. We understood that the best protection is an armed personnel in order to protect children from an armed intruder. And the time of response is critical. And that is why we wanted to make sure that the school had the personnel there that was trained and ready to respond in the quickest fashion. And so we did that. An example in Arkansas, now we have over 80 schools in which we have. Not only was it my joy to support the Second Amendment, but also those firearms manufacturing companies need a home. And I said, you can come to Arkansas and you can have a home where we welcome you. And I was delighted to recruit Sig Sauer to come to Arkansas and to build an ammunition plant. And now I am here before you as a candidate for President of the United States, and I guarantee you that I will continue to stand with the NRA. I will continue to stand for the Second Amendment and the fight that we have. After the tragic murder of George Floyd, there were protests across America, many of those turned violent. Little Rock was no exception. And I witnessed the violence when I said our local law enforcement. That night, we arrested 70 violent criminals, and guess what happened? The violence stopped. You enforce the law. You enforce the law. I did that is the root cause and comes from excessive federal spending in Washington, D.C. We need to slow it down. We need to get a rein on it. We need to balance our budget. We need to get back to spending normalcy so you don't get hit with inflation and high interest rates. America needs to be strong. Right now, we are struggling in America because we are perceived as weak by our adversaries, which started in our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, in which our enemies said, this is a good time to go into Ukraine, by Russia. China has been more aggressive toward Taiwan. America needs to be strong. America needs to lead, and we should not retreat. That's doing the job, and we need to go after the cartels in Mexico that are controlling the border and sending fentanyl into the United States of America that is killing 100,000 of our young people every year. These are truly foreign terrorist organizations and should be designated as such. We need to have a pro-growth energy policy here in the United States. We shouldn't have our leaders going to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia and saying, can you please produce more oil? Let's produce energy in the coming out of Washington that's impacting our schools, our communities, and our businesses. We need to say enough is enough. And so these are challenges that we face. But I want to come back to something that Vice President Pence remarked about, and that is the tragedies that we have seen most recently in some of our schools and businesses. And our hearts go out to them. But I challenge the NRA, I challenge you to continue to support the National School Shield Initiative that enhances security in our schools and the safety of our children. Let's continue to address our These are things that are practical and common sense. We need to enhance what we've done in Arkansas, the role of counselors in the schools to help those children that are struggling. Law to keep them out of the hands of those that are prohibited by law from having those. That is simple common sense to keep us more safe. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a son of the heartland. I am proud to be from Arkansas. Arkansas. We need a president in the White House that understands the importance of the Second Amendment and we have to win in 2024 to make sure that we can have those protections. And I repeat of 2020. And let me tell you, we don't need a rerun of 2020. Let's bring new leadership. Let's win in 2024 to protect our liberties, to protect our border, to protect the sovereignty of the United States, and that America can once again lead. God bless America. Thank you. God bless you.
Please welcome past NRA President Chief Kane Robinson and Chairman of the NRA Law Enforcement Committee.
Before we get started, I want to tell you something about my partner up here, Jay Prince. He's a retired Montana sheriff. He's chairman of the NRA Law Enforcement Committee, and he's usually the biggest vote getter in NRA national elections. Congratulations, Jay. Through. It was August 22 last year in Oklahoma City. Deputies Mark Johns, Sergeant Swartz, and Deputy Norton of the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office went to a residence to serve a court order. The target of the court order was loaded at the front door. He was located there by Deputy Norton, but soon went to the rear of the house where Sergeant Swartz and Deputy Johns were positioned. Communicating and launching shrapnel into his guts. Deputy Johns continued to wounded in the incident. Deputy Mark Johns continued to return fire, protect Sergeant Swartz, Deputy Norton, and himself. His actions and courage under fire is a credit to his department the community. The 22 NRA Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. He's right over there.
God bless that man and law enforcement in general. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Pompeo, fellow NRA member. Welcome to Indianapolis. Hope you have a great time at the show. What you're doing matters. Protecting the fundamental right to keep and bear arms. Don't ever step away from the fight. God bless you. Congratulations for being at another show. Stay at it. Good luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the screens for a special message from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Hello, this is Governor Ron DeSantis, and I want to thank the National Rifle Association for all you do to preserve, protect, and defend the Second Amendment rights of the American people. The Second Amendment ensures that the American people have the capacity to defend their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. It's the last backstop of freedom, the foundation upon which all of our other rights rest. Now, there are some today who see the Second Amendment as an outdated remnant of a bygone era, but the capacity of the people to defend themselves is the basis of their ability to rule themselves. It is no coincidence that throughout history, one of the first things that authoritarian regimes have sought to do is to disarm their own citizens. I find it curious that the same people who advocate the defunding of law enforcement tend to be the same people who express hostility for individual gun rights. They want criminals to have the upper hand over law-abiding citizens. As governor, I've resisted constitutional carry legislation that will bring Florida into line with 25 other states that recognize the fundamental right of law-abiding American citizens to keep and bear arms without a government-issued permission slip. Because of our efforts in Florida, we now have a majority of states in this country that recognize such a right. Now, your efforts in Tallahassee and in state capitals across the country paved the way for us to get this legislation across the finish line. We're also concerned about how the politicization of our economy and the advancement of so-called ESG and woke capital has threatening implications for Second Amendment rights. Too many major financial institutions have discriminated against those involved in the firearm industry, including owners of gun stores. These wealthy interests are trying to impose an anti-Second Amendment agenda on society, an agenda that they could never successfully advance through the normal political process. In Florida, we are enacting protections for Floridians against woke financial institutions. Nobody should be discriminated against because they are gun owners or because they are involved in the gun industry. And finally, we cannot allow administrative agencies of the federal government to enact gun restrictions through administrative fiat. We oppose. Keep it up, and God bless America.
Please direct your attention to the screens for a special message from former UN Ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Hi, it's Nikki Haley coming to you from Iowa. I am sorry for the fact that citizens have the right to protect themselves. And so know that you've always got a friend in me, you've always got a partner in me.
2022 campaign for the U.S. Senate. We were very successful. Your support was a part of that. Also, I'm excited to have an A rating by the NRA. I will always stand in the gap to make sure Americans are the best, safest people on earth. Unfortunately, the radical left, they want Americans, it seems, to be unsafe and unarmed, but not on my watch. It's one of the reasons why, even on the banking committee, we were trying to stop banks from unbanking gun manufacturers. This is a place where we have to take a stand. Our Constitution guarantees.
Since first taking office, our next speaker has been a dedicated defender of the right to keep and bear arms. As a candidate, she promised to eliminate on that promise. The very first piece of legislation she signed as governor was constitutional carry.
So wonderful to be with so many friends here today. Are you excited? God bless America. Talking about. So often, all we need to do to inspire us for future fights is to look at the examples of the past. To keep what they built, we must be people who act on values and character rather than our personal benefit. So much